guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and in today's video we're going to be doing the first of our variable set breakdowns, going into detail how these new variable sets work, how you can use them, where you should be using them, and giving you the information as to how they're actually working. There's a lot of confusion around Slayer sets. I have been doing a lot of testing, that's why these video series have been a little bit delayed. Today's video though is going to be focusing specifically on Supersonic. This is an artifact set and accessory set, variable, so you can get 9 pieces, that is available in the Cursed City of Sintranos. That is when the update came in, and it's particularly focused around turn meter boosting, turn meter control. It is a bit of a speed set. Now, it's very similar to the protection set in the sense that you get resistance, HP, and speed as stats, but it's slightly different in terms of where that speed comes in. Now, where you acquire this is obviously the Cursed City of Sintranos. You get it from completing bosses and Amius. You can see here right now I haven't done Sorath. I will get some artifacts. Accessories can appear in some of these different dungeons, especially if they're like, for example, the double boss up here. That's going to give me accessories. And Amius will also give you accessories and artifacts. Now, you don't have to do hard mode. They're also available in normal mode. Particularly speaking, I have found some pieces in normal, especially up in Soul Cross, that are actually better than hard, because of the way that 5-star and 6-star rolls. You get 5-star and 6-star everywhere. Sometimes normal is just as good as hard for the gear. So you'll complete Cursed City of Sintranos. Eventually, you will then get enough pieces that you can put a set together. Now, I'm fortunate enough that I've got a 9-piece in the High Elves that I can showcase in this video. Now, when you're looking at variable sets, it's important to understand that they are not just one set. You don't need to consider it as a 9-piece. You can consider it as a 4-piece, a 6-piece, or a 9-piece set. When it comes to Merciless set, as an example here, you have a chance to basically reduce skill cooldown on the 4-piece bonus. Now, if you don't really care about doing damage, but actually you just want to reduce skill cooldowns, then this is just simply a 4-piece set that you can make up from accessories or artifacts. And because it's 4 pieces and there are accessories available, then you can do things like, hey, I'll get 3 accessory slots. I only then need 1 artifact slot, and I've still got 5 artifact slots I can put 2 cruel sets. I can put a lethal set in, or I can put another reflex set. You can do any combination you want. Maybe I want some retaliation. Maybe I want double of that new impulse set. You can basically make a lot of different weird mix and match combinations. Then you actually go to the 6-piece bonus, then it becomes a different set altogether. Merciless, for example, then becomes really a dedicated damage set at 6-piece bonus. Now, when it comes to Supersonic, the big deal is probably 4 and 9 more than it is 6 pieces. Although 6 pieces is still valuable, it's a little bit more niche. Here, we've basically got the first piece at 4, which will fill your champion turn meter per buff on each enemy. We're going to break down each section bit by bit when we go into it. 6-piece bonus is going to basically reduce the effectiveness of enemy decreased turn meter effects on you. And then finally, the 9-piece is going to fill any turn meter effects on this champion by 30%. Now, this particular 9-piece bonus is incorrect as per the description. I'm going to go into more detail later on in the video, but just wanted to clarify that what it says there is not what it is doing. In terms of using the Supersonic set, you can use it as either a 4-piece or a 9-piece, in my personal opinion. Those are the 2 breakdowns you're going to be looking at. Unless you know you're going into a heavy turn meter control fight, maybe you're going to fight something like a Lady Kimmy and a Lysandra, where there's lots of enemy decreased turn meter effects. The 4-piece and the 9-piece is where it really is all about. The 6-piece isn't as valuable. So you can either use it as a 4-piece and pair it alongside like a stone skin set, or you can use it as like a full 9-piece bonus. So let's look at the first 4-piece bonus here. Fills this champion's turn meter by 2% per each buff on each enemy. So what this does is it is not giving you permanent turn meter gains for the presence of a buff. It is simply when an enemy places a buff on an enemy, gain 2% turn meter. But it is on the action when a buff is placed. For example, when I use Arbiter's A3, when I use this ability, I'm going to place increased attack on all my allies, including Arbiter. So if I'm in an arena setting, that basically means I'm going to be placing 4 buffs. So the set will give me 2% times 4 buffs times 1, because I'm placing 1 on each enemy. That's equating to about 8% turn meter. Now, if it was someone like a Siphi would place 3 buffs on each enemy. So it's 2 times 4 times 3. And this is pretty significant, because you can get yourself a very fast champion without needing speed. This is particularly valuable for someone like an Armanz. Armanz, if he gets a turn, we all know, if you've been in live arena, if you've experienced this environment, if you fight Armand's and you do not control him, you will lose. You will not get a turn because this is so dominant. And particularly what you need is accuracy and speed. And a lot of people might struggle to get a really fast build with enough accuracy. Well, Supersonic is very valuable here. You can see mine is built at the moment in 5 pieces. I haven't quite got him where I want him to be, but he's in 5 pieces here. So he's getting this bonus. Let me show you how the math actually shows this is going to work. So we can see here, I've got a brief turn meter spreadsheet that I use for various different internal testings. And we've set up an environment where we're going to be fighting a Siphi. Siphi here has got 390 speed. That's what I'm fighting. I'm using my Armand, who's at 320 speed. I'm not using an aura just to make this equation straightforward, but the equation would obviously factor in as well. So we can see when Siphi's going to go, she's going to place increased speed buff and she's going to fill 10% turn meter, which is obviously going to make it very difficult to combat that effect. So at 327 here, you can see what the turn meter is going to go is Siphi will boost and then Warlord will lock me out. And then by that point, I've probably lost the fight. But here's the difference. Okay, right now the difference between those is 390 minus 327. So I'm currently about 63 speed too slow. If I was to go at 391, of course I would beat Siphi and I would win. But at 327, I've got no chance of going first, and probably I'm going to lose because of Warlord. So if I instead allow Siphi to go first, but she will buff, and I gain those buffs. There's 4 enemies, so she's going to buff 4 enemies 3 times, so it's 4 times 3 times 2%, that is a 0.24 buff. I jump ahead of the Warlord, which means at this point, I can fully deplete their turn meters, and reset them, which is incredibly powerful. I can take the whole thing away. So what that basically means is that set has saved me the equivalence of 63 speed. And we can go a little bit more detail here. We can see the Warlord to win this tiebreaker would be 1.36. I'm at 1.38. So I could probably even go as down to sort of 321, 322. Look, we don't need to be 322, so I can save myself even more speed. So a quick way to summarize the way that this is going to work. If you're facing an opposed speed tuned team, so what I mean by that is the leader of the fastest champion in the enemy is aligned to make sure that the second champion is always going to go before your team. That's speed tuning the team. Then you need, for basically 1 round of AoE buffs, so per AoE buff, that means 1 buff on all enemies, it equates to around 18 to 20 speed that you will save. Showing you this example here, I've got Siphi at 420. In order for Warlord to go before my team, he would need to be 369. So we can take sort of the 3 buffs that she's going to do. So that's 3 times 18. That gives us 54 speed. We then take 420 off that, and then we will be left with about 366. It's not quite an exact science. Could probably go as low as 352, but it's a good general ballpark figure. If you're facing an enemy that's going to buff twice on an AoE setting, you're probably going to need to be about, you'll probably save about 40 speed on average. That's how much that set is worth, about 40 speed, that 4-piece bonus. So it's about 18 to 20 speed per AoE round of buff. So in Siphi, it's about like 55 to 60 speed that you will save. As a cut-in mechanic, as a way to basically break the speed meta, especially if you don't have a particularly fast champion, this 4-piece bonus is incredibly powerful if you can get your team up to a good position. That is why, for example, my 327 Armands is not fast enough yet, but once I get another, I get this ascended to get speed up. If I can get him into the 350, 360, I'm going to be able to cut in almost any team that's got a 420 Siphi, which is an incredibly fast build. That will cover you probably for all of the meta, except for like the super end game meta where they've got like 6-star awakened plus 4 mythical champions. For the majority of the time, that will be enough. Now, 350 speed is much more achievable than 420 speed. That is what this 4-piece set bonus is going to give you. That ability to jump ahead of the queue, and if it's on a champion that is going to be able to interrupt the battle flow, one of your speed boosters or one of your turn meter drop or someone like Armand's, it's incredibly powerful. What is the 6-piece bonus going to do? Effectively, what it's going to do is multiply the enemy's turn meter drop by a 30% reduction. So a simple math exercise here, if we just do some quick sort of napkin math, if I've got 10%, 20%, if I've got a 5%, 25%, 30, 35%, 40, or even say like I take 100% of your turn meter, it's going to simply do this. It's going to multiply it down by 30%. So a 10% becomes 7%, a 25% becomes 17.5%, a 30% turn meter decrease becomes 21% turn meter decrease. It is simply bringing it down. Now, As to whether or not that's usable, I think it's the weakest part of this variable set, because one, it has to be a decreased turn meter. There's far more increasing than there is decreasing. And two, when you use it, you don't know actually if it's going to really still help you, because are you still losing too much turn meter even at 21%? You're not gaining anything because you're still losing something, where at least with the 4-piece bonus, you're only truly gaining. You're not really being punished by it, where the 6-piece is still a punishment, you're just getting less of a punishment. But that is how it works. It simply takes the quantity of turn meter you're going to lose and multiplies it by 0.7, takes it down by 30%, to give you what you're actually going to lose, which is 21% there. If it's 100% turn meter depletion, it's now a 70% turn meter depletion. Now let's get on to the 9-piece bonus. This is basically wrong in game. The description here increases any fill turn meter effects on this champion by 30%. Now this makes you think it's doing what the 6-piece bonus is in reverse, whereas if I get turn meter, I multiply it by 1.3. Well, that is not correct. I want to give a shout out here to 4O, BL Swagger, and to Carnage. I don't actually have their links. If I get the links, I'll put it in the pinned comment of this video. It was a DM that was sent to me by BL Swagger, who basically said, hey, 4O, who is a content creator, and Carnage, I think, who might be a mod or affiliated with Playroom, have confirmed that the description of this 9-piece is incorrect through their testing, and actually how it is working is nothing like how it is described here. I've asked for the link so I can do a proper shout out and make sure it's properly attributed. I always like to, give people credit where credit is due. If they've done the work, I want them to get benefits, but I can give you the explanation of why it's wrong. So what it actually is coded like is, and this is what it should say, increases any fill turn meter effects cast by this champion by 30%. It is not about the turn meter filling that I receive. It's about the turn meter fill effects that I cast, that my character gives to other allies. It effectively means that everything that Arbiter does on the A3 and the A4 is 30% stronger for all allies. That is how it works. If a turn meter fill is cast by the person wearing 9-piece bonus, the turn meter fill effect is increased by 30%. That is significantly game-changing. It's hugely different, because before we were kind of looking at this like, well, if I've got turn meter fill, then I have to put it on every single champion. No. If you actually cast the turn meter fill, it improves it for all champions. So if I've got Arbiter at 9-piece and Armand's in 3-piece Supersonic, he still gains this 30% bonus, even though he doesn't have it himself. It is hugely game-changing, so very big shout out and big credit to 4O for doing that effort and doing the work to figure this out. It's been on my backlog for ages, and I just didn't get around to it, and it's really good to see that there are plenty of other people who are dedicated and passionate to really get into the weeds. Now, I've got an example of how I can show this working, and I can do a spreadsheet example as well so we can see the numbers. We're going to be going to Doom Tower Floor 108. The enemies on that wave are 228, 226, 228, and 226. There is 5 enemies, but we've got 4 here for the test. So those are the speeds of the enemy, and I've got my Arbiter configured at 229 speed, so she's going to go exactly just before the enemies. And then I've got a champion in Doom Priest. This is going to be Doom Priest that we're going to be testing, who is currently at 159. Why is 159 important? Because if I do a 30% turn meter fill, then I still at 159 do not have enough turn meter to make Doom Priest go before Lanicus. That is the key thing about 159. Now, if I give her Supersonic, however, it will be different. So what we're going to do first is we're going to showcase it as if we have the Supersonic bonus. So what that means is the 30% turn meter fill becomes 0.3 times 1.3, and it becomes a 0.39. And you can see the Doom Priest is now going to jump ahead of the enemies. I'm going to make them go faster because I get that Supersonic bonus. Let me show you this in the game. So we can come ahead here to Doom Tower. Very good testing ground. Doom Tower doesn't cost me any energy to do this. And we can basically set up our team here. I've got it recently used. There's no aura to worry about. It is simply the 2 speeds. And we can boost, and you'll see Doom Priest gets a turn. Now, let's just verify the speeds here so that it's very clear. So I've got my Arbiter here at, make sure it's Doom Tower here. I've got no bonuses, 229. That's the Arbiter speed. And we've got the Doom Priest here, currently with half of her gear missing because of Sintranos at 159. So that is showing that it's working. Now I'm going to take off the 9th piece Supersonic. I'm just going to remove a piece so we break the 9-piece bonus and we put it back to an 8-piece bonus. So we're going to waste about 100,000 silver here. And we're going to go through. So now we're only on the 9-piece bonus, the 8-piece bonus. We don't have the 9-piece bonus anymore. So we're going to go in here and we're going to basically do the same thing again. Now, if the math is correct, Doom Priest will not take a turn. And there it is. Doom Priest doesn't take a turn. Doom Priest is not in Supersonic gear. This is where this testing has been proven to show that it's actually being cast by, not received. In order for Doom Priest to have cut in before, the description of that set would have required Doom Priest to be wearing the 9-piece bonus. But as you can see from this gearing here, she's got barely any gear. So it's actually the caster that's going to do it. And this is hugely different because if you put your speed booster into Supersonic gear, you're not really punishing your speed sets, right? Because you're going to get a 10, 20, 32% bonus for having all these speeds, which means that if you were to have 3x3 speed sets, that'd be 12, 24, 36. You lose 4% from the set bonus, but in all reality, you're gaining significantly more turn meter because of this fill effect. Because effectively, turn meter fill can be considered speed. It's the same thing. It's just that instead of it being gradual speed, where speed is filling your turn meter bar, it's instant speed in the sense that you're getting almost like 100 speed chunked in one go. That's how you can consider the differences between speed buff and turn meter fill. They're doing the same thing. One is doing it over time. It's a gradual process, where the other one is just giving you it immediately. It's almost instant fill. It's like instant refill. This is a huge change. You should really be considering moving your speed boosters over to this 9-piece bonus because it will dramatically decrease the speed that you require. Let's just see how much difference this actually means. So again, going back to this example here, we have a 0.3. In order for Doom Priest to basically ensure that she goes first, we're probably gonna have to move it up to about 175 speed with a 30% fill. That's how much you would need to make this work. Whereas without it, we can go all the way down to 159. I think that's the floor here, 159. If we go to 158, it won't work. So 159. So that set 9-piece set bonus is effectively saving my damage dealer around about 16 speed. And you might not think that's a lot. That is about 3 speed rolls, right? Because the maximum speed roll is 6. 16 divided by 6. That is about 2.6 rolls. Well, that could be another 14% crit rate, 14% crit damage, 14% attack that you could be putting into a different position. That might be the difference between you winning and losing. And that is only on the first champion. Then we start pairing out across the second ones. If you have 2 Supersonic champions, you're bringing it down even further. It really does make a major difference. And not just that, if your Arbiter is a little bit slow, right? Going back to this example here, if your Arbiter is a little bit slow, then having the 4-piece bonus with the 9-piece bonus is giving you 18 speed per AoE buff on top of your DPS gaining 16 speed per A3 of Arbiter. It's a lot of speed. It's actually really valuable. So there you go, guys. Supersonic set. Who would I put it on? Any person that fills turn meter will gain a lot from the 9-piece bonus. People like Armands, where they don't actually fill turn meter, rather steal, you have to be careful because stealing turn meter is not the same thing as filling turn meter. It may sound like it, you may think it is not. It is coded differently. It has to be physically this effect, fills this churn meter by 5%. If you put a man's into 9 out of 9 Supersonic, his A1, this is now 10 times 1.3, so 13%. This is 5 times 3, so that's whatever the buffs add up to. You're getting 30% more every single time. It's about 2% more. This one here, 3% more. All of those abilities will give him boost. The stealing will not. Especially people like Lysandra, Arbiter, potentially Siphi, although protection set is very powerful for Siphi because of the damage buff. You do actually obviously want to factor in, sometimes you want the other effects from other sets. But certainly pure turn meter champions, this bonus is incredibly valuable, especially if they don't buff a lot. If they're not a very large buff champion, I'm trying to think, for example, Nekmo Thar, for example, doesn't really do significant amounts of buffs because he only really does increase speed, right? All the rest of it is more debuffing. If you wanted to put him into 9-piece Supersonic, well, this will increase the 30% turn meter fill to 39% turn meter fill. And obviously on his passive, this goes to a sort of 7% fill instead of a 5% fill. It's actually quite strong. If he's a mischief target and loses turn meter, then obviously you gain a bit of benefit there. I'm not necessarily saying I would put him in here because obviously there's Hexed in consideration. I think Slayer as well for an AoE A1 is also very valuable. But these are the sort of things you can think about using Supersonic in. Champions that give you guaranteed turn meter fill effects that you want to improve the quality of. 25% becomes 32% fill. So it's quite a big difference, especially if you're consistently and regularly doing it. Archer, for example, 20% here, you'll get a 10% fill. If you place a decrease, that's a 40% fill. This becomes a 52% fill to all allies. It is quite significant. So yeah, definitely something to consider. That is Supersonic. The 9-piece, I've been told there will be an update to the labeling, which clearly explains how it works. And a big shout out again to Foro and Carnage for doing all the big testing to figure that one out. I probably should have paid closer attention to when the set came out, if I'm being honest. I would have picked up on that sooner myself as well. But it is essentially turn meter cast is what is getting boosted, not turn meter received. Let me know, guys, in the comments below, is this going to change the way you approach building some of your champions? Are you going to look to see if you've got that Supersonic? It's still pretty hard to get good Supersonic pieces. You know, we got to wait for the whole Sintranos thing. If you can't beat bosses, if you're still progressing through the game, it's very difficult to get the Supersonic set. I do appreciate that. I've got lucky to even get like enough to make Arbiter. This isn't a particularly powerfully fast set. I just threw in enough to get to my 229. I could potentially put my Arbiter in a super fast speed and that might be better. So I do appreciate it's hard to get, but I do think this is something for people to pay special attention to. Merciless gets all the headlines, but Supersonic here, now that we understand it better, could be incredibly powerful, incredibly valuable. Keep an eye out for the next couple of videos. We will be looking at Slayer set. That is one I'm really, really curious about doing a lot of in-depth analysis for. We will be looking at Merciless set as well, now that they've updated it from a couple of months ago, to make sure we fully understand it. I will probably do a rundown of Stone Skin and Protection as well, so that we have a good coverage of all of the variable sets and all the combinations you can do with it as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.